Welcome to another exciting episode of Many Hats of Business, the podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Gordon, and I'm thrilled to have you with us today. On this podcast, we explore the realities of business and the many hats we have to wear. I'll be speaking to some fantastic business owners about their journey to where they are today, in the hope that they inspire you to go through the tough times so that you get to relish the rewards having your own business can bring. Before we jump in, a quick reminder to subscribe, rate and leave a review if you enjoy what you hear. Your support means the world to us and helps Many Hats of Business, the podcast, reach even more curious minds like yours. Alright, let's get started. Get ready to be entertained, informed and inspired. This is Many Hats of Business, the podcast. Hi Emma, thank you for joining us today. Would you introduce yourself to the listeners, please?
I will do my best because I'm in a tired state after my daughter, I am a mum, has had a cough the last few nights, so we've been having poor sleep. But I'm Emma Sidney and I'm a business designer, and I call myself that because basically I couldn't think of another name to sort of describe what I do, which is basically about helping build businesses by design. So being more conscious, so it helps my audience, my clients, to achieve their income goals, to love their life while they're doing it now, and also to make a bigger change in the world. So it's the three things for me. It's not just one thing. And I kind of do that in three ways because I like the power of three. I'm a bit
Number three.
Number three is great. I love email marketing and showing you how to use email marketing because I think that is an area that is quite often quite masculine, quite technical, and I kind of want to bring the joy, the heart to all of that. To actually, one of my other areas is funnels, which is actually, I call it the transformational pathway, which is about how you take your audience on a journey with offerings and courses and programs and all of that. And finally, it is about that design piece. It's about, how can you achieve your goals and love your life now and create a framework that works for you rather than the cookie cut, this is my way, you follow my way approach. So within all of that is so how do we as business women consciously create our businesses?
Yeah, I love that. And, you're obviously very on the same page as me with that. And we've talked briefly before, haven't we, about how we both have a strong feeling about businesses evolving and how at different stages of your life, they need to give you different things. You need different things from your business. And that's kind of the point of having a business, is the flexibility to mold it in that way. I know you've got a young child, haven't you? And I've had three. So like the same issues of that thing around like nursery care and when they go to school and planning accordingly with that. I know your nursery hours have just changed, haven't they? And you've got more freedom to work more. How's that for you?
Well, it started off a little bit rockily, funnily enough. So I was all there prepared for my first, and it was still a 3-day week, and I've been doing 3-day weeks, but one of the days has been I'm in a coffee shop because my in-laws had her. And then my childminder, bless her, ended up in hospital. So actually, this week that when we're recording this is my first full, 4-day week. And it's just amazing that by the same token, I've lost the day last week. So then I'm sort of feeling a little bit like I'm on catch up for the things that I was planning to do. And also the first week, I didn't feel very well. I'd got her cold that she very graciously gave me.
That's the joys of going to nursery more, isn't it? God, they catch everything.
Yes.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because like you say, and you make these plans of, okay, this is when things are changing for me. And business, whilst being an evolution thing, it has to be really adaptable, doesn't it? And I think the people that do well are the people that are more adaptable, because there's so much we don't plan for, isn't there? And it's very easy to get into that mindset of, like you say, feeling behind and beating yourself up, and we all do it and it's completely normal. But I always believe we completely overestimate what we'll get done in a shorter time, like a year or less. And then you look back on what you've achieved in the last 5 years and you're like, wow. And you've completely underestimated that.
Yeah, I agree. And that is part of what I teach, is that whole managing your expectation and how you can actually sort of plan, but plan flexibly. And it's more, you know, bringing the art and the science together, which I find very fascinating. And it's very personal. But the head thing, I still struggle with. And I have to I do remind myself, I'm like, well, I mean, she turned 3 in February. So now I get my funding so I can do more hours with her. And she's ready for more hours as well. She's ready to go to nursery. So she's doing nursery and childminder together, which she's just been doing childminder before. And I have to still remind myself, well, actually, you know, she was born in February 2021, and I had like a day a week childcare from September. And because, you know, I ran a group program when she is literally in my arms, because I love what I'm doing and I want to, you know, it's how you plan it and how you carry some of it on. And I was in a position as well where I'd been working part-time as a consultant before, and I'd got maternity leave as well. So I'd got the best of both worlds. And it was the opportunity, which I think it is for a lot of women, to then really launch myself into doing my business. But I suppose it's really fueled what I'm then doing and teaching and showing. Is it's really helped me go, right, okay, I have this time. What's the best model? So I used to do a lot of one-to-one stuff, and I used to do it for you things. That's what I started doing alongside. I mean, that was still alongside my part-time job. So it was still within a sort of container, if you like. But partly my energy levels are not there to do the one-to-one stuff. Oh, they haven't been. Not just the time. And also it's back to what I love doing. And that's what I teach is, you know, what do you love doing? How do you want to structure your business so you're doing more of what you love doing, whether that's one-to-one or group or whatever model it is. One of the interesting things for me, I think it's interesting anyway, you may not think it's interesting, but I do, is the fact that I really want to create something that is different faceted. So a lot of the time people talk about, oh, you've got to specialize in something. Now I do the email marketing bit because it weaves so much through what everybody needs, and it's really important. It's something very specific, but it's not necessarily, I don't necessarily do one thing and show one thing and go, because there's people who will teach you how to do a membership and will teach you how to do X, Y, and Z. And I don't do that very deliberately because I don't believe there is one answer. So for me, it's like, well, how can I help you get to a point where, yes, I'm going to teach you how to do your course or do this or do that. But it's also, how can I help you to decide you need somebody to help you with things as well? Does that make sense? I hope it does.
Yeah, and I think I'm very similar in the not wanting to do one thing. And it's, you know, I've called my business Many Hats of Business because we do have to wear so many hats. And I think people come into business sometimes with very, very strong skills in what they're going to deliver. But if they haven't had the experience in other areas, it can be really difficult, and nobody realizes how difficult it can be at the start. And what I teach isn't about necessarily you doing everything, but it's about getting a good base understanding, which I really believe in business is important, so that when you delegate or outsource some of the hats, then you're going to do it more effectively because you've got a base understanding. I came into business with a background as a finance manager, and it really helped me. And I think, you know, one of the other things I particularly like is the same thing with you with email marketing. You do that because it's very important. I help people with the SEO side of their website because so many people are, you know, they got a website thinking, oh, fantastic, I've got this website now and I'm going to get bound. And it doesn't happen. And it's demoralizing and expensive. And it is, you just want to cry.
And I'm laughing because I did exactly the same thing when I first started. Not this business, I would point out, because my background, sort of similar-ish, is internal audit. So it makes me laugh sometimes when people put, I'm a certified business strategist or whatever and all of that kind of stuff. And that's fine because that's what they've done and I don't want to demean that. But it's like, if you knew what I had to learn and train in to be, and similar for you, you know, I've done a bit of, I had to do financial management. I had to learn how to do accounts. Not that I've ever had to do it, thank God, because I don't like it. But, you know, I had to be able to understand enough to go into a big company and go, right, okay, I'm asking you the right questions about your finances. But I've been on like my personal journey of like, I've been overweight and had anxiety and all of this kind of stuff. And the internal audit wasn't fueling me anymore because people wouldn't listen to what I was trying to do. So I started to get into stuff, and my first business was as a nutritional life coach, and I got somebody to do my website. That's why I'm chuckling. For £750, so I even remember how much it was. There was no SEO on it. It was very pretty, and I didn't know about SEO at that point. And whilst, again, I don't teach it, but I know to highlight to others that when you're doing this stuff, you need to know, you need to go off and you need to either get someone to help you with it. And one of my very first clients, I helped her set up an SEO program. So,
yeah. It's so important, isn't it? And I think it's something that, like, web developers don't usually point it out, or they didn't. I think they made it better, but they didn't point it out. And of course, if you're new in business and new to websites, you don't even know that you need it. You don't even know that it's missing until it's not being bound. And one of the other problems, of course, with SEO is people always spout that, oh, it's 6 to 9 months before, it comes into effect. So by then you've kind of lost any relationship with someone you paid to do that, and it's too late and you've paid and nothing's happened. So, for me, it's about kind of using things like almost your pain points to help other people along the way with stuff that you know to be important. For me, it was very much, I was 19 and I'd got to cold call otherwise to get work, and I hadn't got the confidence. And, like, if my 19-year-old self could see me now, she'd be laughing. But yeah, the idea of calling people and, it just wasn't something I had joy in. And also, even back then, I was aware that, it's nearly 20 years ago now, but I was thinking, well, if I was on Google and they could find me, then they'd find me while I'm asleep or at work. And for us, when you've had kids, when you come back and you're working part-time, there's so much to do that sales isn't something you want to be doing. And if you can automate it, which is what I've done, and now I'm showing other people how to do that, of getting your dream clients finding you, so that then you're just, in ours it was manufacturing, so everything's bespoke, so everything quote as such, but you've only got to do that bit. You've not got to find the people that want the quote because they find you. And that's, for me, been really important in that coming back as a mom and working what I wanted to and being the present mum that I wanted to be.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the key. I mean, for me, I dialed down, I got rid of my website. I use MemberVault, which is still SEO and still sort of searchable, but most of what I do at the moment is driven through social media. However, now I've got the time and I'm in the right headspace as well, and I'm very much clearer about my business and what it is, I'm going to go back to my SEO and redo it and, and go through it and create a website. Because I know I could get somebody else to do it for me, but I just want to do the basics of my own website for now, start to get that in, and then get someone to improve it for me, because that's how I better work. Yeah. That's just me. Others are different.
It makes me so excited to hear.
Because I have created my websites in the past and they have driven traffic, and because I was evolving, because I'd got Ember, because I couldn't put the effort into it, it's like, right, okay, it's not going to work for me. I can work it by doing my other things, which I have done quite nicely. But now for me to scale, that piece of the puzzle needs to come in. But it can come in because I'm going to set up a YouTube channel. I'm going to use Pinterest. So I'm going to start to use those channels alongside my website and blogging that will drive that traffic and work together, because that for me is going to be better. And now I've got the time. That's something I'm going to use some of my extra time to do.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant, isn't it? I mean, what for you has been the best decision you've made in your business? I know you've just talked about bringing in a lot of new stuff like Pinterest and YouTube. I feel like if I asked you this in a year's time, these could be some of your answers, to be fair.
They probably will be. I think the thing is, there's two things. I think for me, it's been just, I haven't needed and I haven't wanted to go too big. Within that, one of my decisions in what I'm going to be offering and how I'm going to do it is, I still don't want to be, no, this is putting a restriction. I want to have a business and an intimate business and a space where I know people and they get to know, and they can do my courses, they can do all of this kind of stuff. I don't necessarily want 5,000 people in a challenge that I run, and then I run a live thing where there's 100 or 200 people, because that just, even with like having a VA and all of that kind of stuff, which is on my, and I do want to scale, don't get me wrong, but I've realised that for me, it's not necessarily going to be like million. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're trying to scale it, still keep the enjoyment side for you and scale it sustainably. I mean, I'm all about building a sustainable business because, and we've touched on this before, haven't we, that if you're doing something that you love at an amount that you are comfortable with and happy with, and it's profitable, why would you need to stop? You know, I think because people sometimes they come into the business world having been in employment. A lot of being in the employment world is about reaching a time when you can retire and, I'm going to try and retire early at 55 or 60 or whatever. I think if you are doing something for yourself that you're enjoying, you know, like for you, you're working closely with people as well. You build relationships with people. You know, are you going to just go, I'm 55 now? So yeah, it's just not realistic.
No, especially because what I want to do is, and I'm bringing that out soon, and I've been wanting to do it for a long time, but again, I haven't had the mental capacity to do it, is to have a membership alongside like a group program that I run. So that's kind of the way my model is going to go. Because I'm not, as I say, I might dabble a little bit in some do it for you stuff again, but that's going to be predominantly where I go. Again, I'm not going to have a £10 or whatever dollar or whatever a month membership where I need 500 people in it, because that's not going to work for me. So it's not going to be high cost, but equally it's not going to be low cost, because I'm looking at like 100 or 200 in there, because for me, that's going to be enough to still get to know people and build those relationships. I have really mega goals in my life. You know, I want to buy a house, and I want to buy a house mortgage free. And that does mean upping how I'm earning over the next sort of 3 to 5 years. But it doesn't have to mean that I do it in a way that some of the others do it. And that's not a wrong way. You know, if you know, you want to get certain, you can do that. And I'm not rolling out I have an email marketing toolkit, which I've created, which is like over 12 months, you get bite-sized training, which you could term a sort of membership, but I've done it as it's, you know, you pay it over 12 months. It's your thing. You've got those bite-sized training and you've got a course and stuff within it, because I realised that I'm not going to get the fulfillment out of, you know, that a different type of model where for me to achieve my financial goals, I've got to have, as I say, 1,000 people paying me £10 a month, which just wouldn't fulfill me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think we talked on this on the other episode I recorded the other day, actually, about the self-awareness in business, because if you are really self-aware of what serves you, then you're going to build a business that really does add value to your life. And I think, but that's what you're obviously trying to do, isn't it? That you're saying, well, I know me, I know what I'm going to enjoy delivering, and I'm not going to enjoy trying to keep track of 1,000 people. And yes, you could bring other people in to help you, but you want the personal side of it. And it's suddenly not very personal if you've got to know 1,000 people.
And I do plan on having like a community manager or something like that, or somebody to help me with those kind of things. But again, I don't want a huge team, because there is that personal thing, and I want to be able to be a part of it. And that's not sustainable for me, because basically where I am now, which is my 4 days a week, and my daughter goes into childcare 9 till 3, those 4 days, so 6 hours, roughly school hours, that is going to be my working week, because even when she goes to school, I have no plans to work on Friday. So Fridays, I might do some like personal development or business, you know, I might go and do a training or a course or something. It might free me up to do some of that again, from a prolific learner. But that's so I'm like now working on that. I also know, and I know that maybe it's me. I also know that I have 2 summers, and then we're dealing with school. So I know that that's coming as well. So that's partly in my mind. It's like, right, so I know my goals and I know this. And I think the thing is, for me, like I said at the beginning, there is a huge, I want to make a difference. I really want to help people change lives, help my audience change lives. But I know that when we want to have that, and when we have that mission, we can again still lose track of ourselves within that, and still lose, like you say, it's that self-awareness of like, we're actually, so all of a sudden I'm on this path of my business and I really want to help people and I really want to help my audience, but actually it's exhausting me and it's not fulfilling me. And for me, is it a twin factor? I don't know. It's like, it's that thing. And pretty much every training and every workshop I do, I'll always start with, what do you want? What's going to work for you? That's always, people ask, how often should I send an email? How often can you write an email?
It's funny actually, because I say the same with blogging, and I saw someone on a group a while ago say, oh, I'm going to start blogging twice a week. Well, it's not going to happen. It's nice. It'll last a couple of weeks. I say, if you can do one a month. And the great thing is, because of the longevity of it, I still get paid work from blogs I wrote 10 years ago. So all of that time when I'd got young babies, did I write a blog? Did I yet? But was I still getting traffic to my website because of what I'd already done? Yes. And it's that thing as well, isn't it, of setting realistic goals with what you're going to achieve, because you're less likely to beat yourself up when you fail because you didn't fail because you set it at a realistic level. And I think it is just that thing of self-awareness, isn't it? And nobody can be 100% motivated all the time, because it's no different having a diet, an exercise plan. You can't be. So you do have to build in these disciplines around it so that, you've got maybe someone, an accountability coach or whatever, if you know that you're going to get bored with the things. And people do, don't they? They set up like, oh, I'm going to do this all the time. And a lot of us, our brains don't work in the way that you can go, okay, yeah, this will be fun forever. Because, creating content all the time, it's tough, isn't it? And I think sometimes having someone in your team that's like expecting that from you so that they can edit it, it works really well.
Yeah. And I think it's that whole thing as well. It is understanding our lifestyle. And the second part of it starts with you, is your audience and who are they and what do they need and how do you do things in your business that serves them. So it is that double thing. And it's quite interesting because I recently offered a live workshop on designing a masterclass. And I decided, just as an experiment, because I like to experiment because then I can sort of help others with the other things, I decided to offer a self-study option for the workshop as well. So it's like, once it's live, and in essence, it's ended up turning into a course, but that's fine. That's quite often how I end up doing things. I can't just go, right, write your masterclass. I've done so this is how you do your landing page, this is how you do your, so I've had to do the whole thing. But interestingly, more people took up in my audience the self-study option than took up the live option. And I know when I've done things in the past, a lot of people have come into my program or whatever, and again, a good proportion of them will do it self-study. And this is in part because they are moms and they are busy and they're disciplined enough, and I can offer the accountability in the emails and, I do all of that as well. But they're often disciplined enough to go, right, okay, so I need to do this week. I know it might take me longer to do it, but I am going to do it. And they've all done it. And I had one lady who I went to a networking. I had no idea if she'd done, I did kind of know, obviously, she'd access stuff, but I didn't. And I must admit, I've been quite pants at then having a follow-up and getting feedback, but that's just because I've been tired of it.
Busy. Yeah.
And basically, then it's the one thing I'm like, damn, I've not done that. I teach people to do that and start off.
Oh, we can all teach something. I know. That's what we preach, can't we? Yeah, that's not like you guys.
I came on a networking and said, I went through all of Emma's program. It was absolutely brilliant. And I was like, oh, that's cool.
Great feedback. Thank you. No, that's lovely, isn't it? When you hear stuff like that, that's really.
It is. But again, it's understanding. I know now, whenever I'm doing things for my audience, and when I'm selling my programs and membership and stuff, I need to say to them, I'm going to show you how you can access what you need to access. If you want to join my group program, but you don't want to come to the live sessions, the training will all be there. There'll be emails, there'll be support if you need it, but you don't have to come to the live stuff because it's not necessarily going to work with your schedule. And whilst you get some benefit from it, you're going to get as much benefit for your money elsewhere. So it's understanding how your audience works and needs to work, because we can all go, I'm going to add all this value and do all of this, but actually it's not necessarily the way that your audience needs it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, actually, because I'm doing, I've been, well, it says on my website that I'm doing a membership, but at the moment it's evolving. And in the next couple of months, I'm actually going to launch my mentorship. And basically, it's going to be high touch point with me and less of the training. Well, because everyone will do an onboarding call, the training is going to be very tailored to what the people have said they need and what they might not have said they need, but what's come up from those calls. And it's going to be much more high touch point with me, because I think in a lot of memberships and things, people, and I'm in them, you don't access the learning because you just forget, and there's so much to do, and there's, and you don't, some of it, you don't necessarily get the value from, or you don't think you're going to get the value from, and you just don't do it. Whereas the individual one-to-one calls with me, they know that they can get a hell of a lot from that to move them forward. So that's where my membership's evolving into.
It's interesting because because I can't help myself. So my membership is going to be a 3-tiered membership.
Yeah.
And the top tier is a mentor / kind of mastermind format. For that reason, for those that want that, then the middle tier is much more of a guided learning, training, educating. The dog is barking, so I do apologise here. It's probably the postman. And then the lower tier is much more about, not a lower tier, but like more about accountability and like momentum and movement and all of that through business. For that reason, because, it's like, right, okay, I know I've got 3, and it, again, it's my capacity. I love working with people anyway. And it's like, how can I pull all that together? Also, because I'm a bit lazy and I don't want to have to be promoting 20 different things, which is kind of what I've been doing a little bit and dabbling over the last year. And it's like, right, I keep creating all this stuff. What if I just pulled it all together? I can promote this when they want, and they can access it when they want. So yeah, so I agree with you. It's that whole thing of giving people those options.
Yeah. And that's why I've left my membership thing on my website, because I know that in doing it, I will say, look, it's difficult, isn't it? Because some people say, oh, you can't help everyone. But realistically, we all come into business because we all want to help everyone. Yeah. And, this is one of the reasons behind doing the podcast, is that for people that aren't ready to invest in things at the moment, or, they haven't got a lot of time, but they can listen while they're driving, you get a lot of useful information from people. So that's one of the reasons of doing that. And I will want to do something that is very entry level for people, where they don't get the access in the same way to me, but they can get a lot of stuff. Because I've written a blog about it, actually, about like one of the quite common search term in Google is, can I start a business with no money? And yes, you can, but it takes more time. And everything is time, money balance. So if you haven't got the time, or you want to do something really quickly, it's going to cost you more money, because you're going to have to pay somebody to either do it or show you how very quickly personally, rather than, you can't do a course in everything and like function at the same time. So you're either paying more and having it done for you, or it's going to take longer because you're learning it to do it yourself. I actually do quite like that route, because you get a very, it's like with you say you're a prolific learner. I'm the same. And you do build up a massive knowledge, which I've been doing for like 15 years. And then you've got that. No one can take it away anyway. And like, it's evolved into me then helping other people, because I've come across so many people that have struggled along the way. And I've seen so many businesses go bust, to be honest. Most of them are in your money. But it is, something that you just want to be able to then help people to avoid that.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. And for me, I mean, especially with my background of doing internal audit and going, I've done all sorts of random things, but having seen how really corporate, you're talking like £1 billion organisations work / don't work. It's like, okay, so we've got to get to the nitty gritty of understanding. I'm a believer like you, to understand the foundations, to understand what it means to have a strategy however you want to do it and whatever that looks like is still really important. And it's like, what I learned in training and studying and all of that kind of stuff. And I may not have gone and done it all the time, but I still, every business needs these fundamental things to function. And it's all very nice and good to kind of go, I'm just going to while my way. It's going to be very fluid. And as I say, and then, I've kind of done a little bit of that as well sometimes, but there are fundamentals that will make the difference. And, business, we can be ambitious and we can think, it's like, as an auditor, some of what I would do would be like about how you do compliance and how you do processes and all of this kind of stuff, which to a lot of business owners is quite boring and quite I don't want to have a, standard operating procedure or whatever it is, policy written down and all that. And partly it's because, I've read hundreds of pages of policies and stuff, which were not necessary. But equally, the principle of a lot of this stuff is what is going to help everybody's business be more successful. I think I once did an audit of a fuel card system for a trust, for an ambulance trust. I won't say which one. And they had a 56-page document on this. The ambulance drivers only needed a page of it. So obviously weren't engaging with it and weren't doing the bits that they needed to do.
Yeah, because I was through the 56 pages to find which bits it was.
Exactly. So my recommendation was put it on an A4, laminate it, put it in the ambulance. This is what they need to know. And that to me is a lot of what we can end up struggling with and what we can end up, people overcomplicate things. There are a lot of, I don't say that there's no one right way. We can all follow different ways and that's fine. There's a lot of people out there going, follow my way. My way will make a difference to you. But then you try and follow their way. It's like reading a self-help book and not applying it to ourselves. And it's like, it doesn't work that way. We've got to adapt things and, be open to that. So don't be if you're somebody who teaches a method to somebody, don't be precious if they slightly change it and adapt it to suit them, and don't shout at them.
Yeah, that's helpful if you don't shout at them. I think also it's that thing as well when people are buying something, when people are selling something, they've essentially got different motives. And the person selling it wants to sell it. So if you say, buy my thing because if you follow this exactly, you'll make 6 figures, essentially they're saying that because you're not going to buy it if you buy this and kind of vaguely follow it, you might get there. That's not going to, people aren't going to buy.
Not sexy.
But the person buying also needs to be aware that this is how they've done it. And if you follow it closely, that will be better than what you're doing at the moment, perhaps. But it's that thing, isn't it? If people are telling you something to sell it, and I would like to hope they don't bite your head off if you've done it slightly differently, but really they should be quite accepting that, they've said that because they want to sell it. And really, that's kind of where their responsibility stops. Sell it, deliver it, follow up. But actually, what people choose to do with it's up to them because they're bought it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, sadly, I've had calls with people in the past. One lady, she'd been doing loads of stuff. Could she do things differently? Yes, because it wasn't all working. She went and spoke to a business coachy strategist type person who basically said, everything you've been doing is total rubbish. You need to start from scratch.
That's because she wanted to sell her program.
Yes. That just makes me cry.
Yeah, it's sad, isn't it? It's funny what you were saying as well about process and stuff like that, though, because process improvement is one of my high geek out points. I love it. I'm not going to lie. I'm working with a client at the moment on it, and I was coming in to help with the roles and responsibilities. And I said, well, yeah, that's great, but can we do process too? Because there's no point in us doing roles and responsibilities and then changing stuff, and then the roles will change, and people hate change. So let's just, go from the start. So we're doing the process bit first, and it makes me so happy. But within my manufacturing business, we decided, I think it's a few years ago now, I kept thinking about doing ISO 9001.
Oh, yes.
And I was like, oh, you know, it's going to be a lot of work. And interestingly, when I spoke to one of the auditors about it, he was saying, you know, actually, most of it you'll have in place, but you don't have the certificate that says so. So in the end, like when I looked at it, we didn't have to put much in at all. And it was like this thing that had been putting off for a long time because you think, oh, you know, it's going to be a lot of work. And actually it wasn't. And the great thing is, and, you know, some businesses obviously won't be this way, but I'm a chartered manager and I particularly like process. So, you know, we've got a lot.
We can imagine I do.
And now I've got the certificate that says so. And, you know, it has been really rewarding to go through the process, partly because it highlighted how good we already were. So I really did enjoy that side. And I think sometimes with anything like this, you've got to kind of take the enjoyment out of those. You've got to enjoy them and see the benefits in these things and the positives, because otherwise, like you say, those bits can feel much more boring, but you can make it interesting for yourself. When you're doing something boring, make it interesting for yourself.
But it's that whole, I mean, I always come back to, you know, even boring things. It's like, well, why are you doing it? Well, you're doing it because it means that this is easier, because actually it also means, you know, you can increase your income because you're not doing things in an efficient way. I always have that sort of, and again, in the future, I am looking at whether I can do more corporate consultancy again, and my messaging will be very different. And like, I'm very conscious of how I do my messaging, even though underpinning a lot of what I do is about how can you be more efficient, how can you save time, I'll talk a lot about repurposing and organisation, things like that, and processes a little bit, but not as much as, you know, then you come on and you do it, and then you've got your process in place by default. I help you create it.
Yeah. You just don't sell them that, because no one thinks.
Just don't sell on that. And for ages, I wouldn't use the word efficient in any of my, because I was like, efficiency is just boring. It's not exciting. It's very corporate. I do let it sneak in every so often now. But I tend to talk about not procrastinating.
Oh, yeah, that's real in business, isn't it? And it's funny because I talked about that in a recent episode, and it was that thing of, you know, you've got KPIs. When you're in corporate, a lot of people that I speak to, you know, they've come from corporate and they've got these targets set by someone else to hold them accountable. And then suddenly you've got the freedom and no one sets them. And then you're like, oh, I've just not hit where you want to hit because you haven't held yourself accountable, or no one else is holding you accountable, or you didn't write the goal.
And you're not looking at data, and you're not looking at what you're doing and how that, and having that corporate approach. And I do think, and I must admit, I'll hold my hands up very high, because I was very frustrated with all the corporate world. And even though I knew all of this stuff, when I first did my nutritional life coaching business, I didn't apply hardly a lot of it, because I was like, I don't like the corporate world, because it's all like, you know, why would I do a development plan? Why would I do like strategy? Why would I? And then as I kind of moved on and was like, I got results, but I didn't get the results I wanted. And I was like, okay, I need to step back here and I need to do some work, not just on myself also. And that's how it's evolved into the business it is now. He's going, okay, so what bits do I like? What bits do I value? What bits do I know I need to have? And that sort of helped. But, you know, you kind of can reject it. And I think a lot of women, when you do, a lot of us who set up our own business have been in corporate. And I think that's one of the problems, is that rejection of that. And I think this is why people go down the shiny object syndrome kind of view of like all these nice sparkly things, is because it's somebody showing you what to do. It's kind of like that's what you're kind of holding on to, but equally rejecting it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because people do come out of corporate and they're disheartened. So they say bye to all of it. And actually you need to keep the good bits and say bye to the bits that won't serve you and that you really don't like. So it is that taking time to sit with it, isn't it? And think about, okay, yeah, but which bits will benefit the business and which bits are the bits that I can leave behind. And I think that'll, you know, make a big difference to the speed of getting where you want to get to, because, you know, essentially life isn't a race, because the end point is like we die, so we shouldn't really race through, but we do.
We need to enjoy it.
I am the worst for it, but if you want to make your business the success that you wanted, this is not me saying a success is has any figure, it is the success you want it to be, then you really do need to sit with it and have a think of what you can pull from corporate that is useful if that's what your background is.
It's like, it's by your definition. It's like the idea. And again, I will never talk about helping you to create a business plan, albeit I've just written a course, so I do keep writing courses, which this is why I'm having a membership, so everything comes in, which is all about creating a marketing blueprint. In essence, it's a series of plans and strategy. And
it makes part of your business plan that I'm not going to talk about.
It's not a good chunk of your business plan. It even talks about a business growth plan, which is not within the scope of the thing, but gives people the headlines to do it. And again, it doesn't have to be the level of corporate. It doesn't have to be 300 pages long, although I'd still argue corporate it shouldn't be 300 pages long, but never mind.
Things I say about a business plan as well, actually, is don't write one if you're never going to read it, because it's pointless. Write one if you're going to look at it every 6 months and kind of see where you're at, or every year. Yeah. Come back to it. If you're writing it, unless you're trying to get funding, of course.
Yeah, that's different.
But otherwise, only write it if you're actually going to use it, because otherwise you're going to sit for 3 days procrastinating on writing it, and that could have been 3 days that you spent far more usefully if you're not going to come back to it.
But also it's how it translates into the working documents of what you're going to do. So having that promotional plan, or having this is what I'm going to be developing over the year, and it's how it translates into that. So then you are going back to it and all of that. It's no good just writing a business plan and doing nothing with it, like you say.
Yeah, just to say I've got a shiny business plan, that means nothing.
I don't have a business plan in the formal way, but I do have plans for what I'm doing and how I'm developing and my goals and stuff like that. Don't have it written out in that way. Got quite a lot of Trello tabs and like Excel things.
They all link together.
They all link together, but I haven't written it out because I don't have a need to write it out.
No,
I'm
with you on that. It's difficult, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's part of that doing what's going to work for you, because when you've got your own business, you're your own boss, so you can do it your way, people. This has been brilliant, so thank you so much. One of the things I like to do is I'm a big believer of personal development and learning, as we discussed earlier. So one of the ways I like to do that is through reading, and I've got an Audible subscription as well, so that I can multitask while I'm driving or walking. Have you got a book recommendation you'd like to share with people?
I do, but I have to look it up because I was prepped. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Stephen Covey.
Now, I got quite into Stephen Covey when I read that, and I did some of his other stuff, because it's not about time management. And that's the thing for me. And I think a lot of people, again, will go through his book and then try and stick to everything and all of that and lose track of what exactly he's talking about, which is about how you adapt it. I liked all of that kind of stuff. And as I say, I got quite into some of the other things as well, of how you manage your time, but it's not about managing your time. So,
good habits. No, that's brilliant. We've got a well-thumbed copy in our house as well.
So that would be one of my, I haven't read it for a couple of years, but it was certainly something that really changed. And the other one that I can't remember the author of is the 12-week planning one.
Okay. I'm not sure I know that one, but what I'll do is I will put the link below because I'll find it.
I can't remember that one, but that's another good one as well that kind of I read at the same time. No, just to throw that in. So I can't do. My problem is that I can never do one.
You're not the only person. So yes, well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it, and I'll include your links so people can find you and follow you on your socials as well. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Many Hats of Business, the podcast. Your support means a lot to me. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with your business friends, as they may find it useful too. If you hit the follow button, you'll be first to know when a new episode lands. See you next time.